Welcome to this Florida Department of Transportation training. Documenting results in the project development phase is part of a video series providing guidance for sociocultural effects evaluations for transportation projects. The results of the SCE evaluation are documented to inform decision-making in the current project phase as well as in future project phases. In this training, we will first review the basics for composing the SCE evaluation documentation. Then we will get into the specific documentation needs of the project development phase. Let's spend a moment recalling the steps in the SCE evaluation process leading up to Step 6, Document Results. At this point in the process, community information has been prepared and the study area for the evaluation has been defined. Potential direct, indirect, and cumulative effects that could occur as a result of the project have been identified, and recommendations to resolve any adverse effects have been made. Learn more about the steps in the SCE evaluation process by viewing on-demand videos on the department's website. These videos provide an overview of the process and instructions on how to prepare for an evaluation and assess potential effects, including specific considerations for the 6 SCE issues. There is guidance on identifying solutions to effects, and this video providing direction on documenting the results. Other videos discuss how to perform project-level demographic analysis and environmental justice analysis. Now let's get started with general practices to follow when composing the SCE evaluation documentation, starting with storytelling. Documenting the SCE evaluation as you would a story will help make the information more compelling to your audience, including reviewing agencies and the public. An effective story has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and speaks to the who, what, where, when, why, and how. Visual imagery, which is the shortcut to the brain, can be used to deliver key information. Use maps and photographs to draw attention to information the audience needs to know and help them understand. To be an effective story, the information you want to communicate must be clear. This is done by using familiar, everyday words, providing only information that is necessary, and stating it in a logical sequence. Short sentences are preferable to long ones, which have greater potential to be unclear. Use an active voice for most sentences, and make clear in the sentence who is acting and who is the subject of the action. Thoughtful layout and design, including subheadings and bulleted lists, are ways to make information easy to find. These techniques are part of Florida's Plain Language Initiative and are required of all public communications and reports, including documentation of SCE evaluations. Learn more on the topic in Part 1, Chapter 11 of the PD&E Manual. The level of detail reported in the documentation will vary by project phase. More detail is expected in the project development phase when the issues are in focus than in the planning phase when the issues are being discovered. Only issues that are relevant to the project should be discussed. If there is little or no impact potential relative to an SCE issue, a short statement to that effect is all that is needed. Conversely, potential significant impacts as defined by the Council on Environmental Quality Regulations warrant more discussion in the documentation, as with situations involving complex issues such as cumulative effects. Avoid stating the same information over and over by using references to relevant information reported elsewhere in the document. The goal is concise reporting that effectively and efficiently communicates your findings and conclusions. The format and sequence of SCE evaluation documentation will also vary depending on the project phase and potential for effects. Generally, start out by describing the project context, that is, the potentially affected human environment. Include information about the data and analysis used, as well as about people who were involved, how they were involved, and what they had to say. Report key findings and conclusions on each topic discussed, including the severity of potential effects and any tensions relative to other aspects of the project, and present recommendations for solving issues or a path to moving in that direction. Include supplemental information that reviewers may need as exhibits or appendices or as content in the project file. When describing the project context, identify the demographic character of the study area, including the presence of any population groups addressed in the non-discrimination laws and policies. in the section describing project effects, indicate the distribution of potential effects among population groups in the study area, and if any negative effects would disproportionately and severely burden any particular group. The documentation must also show that input from affected groups was considered in the SCE evaluation and that none were excluded from participating in the project decision-making process. For more information on this topic, view the Facilitating Equitable Outcomes video series on the department's SCE webpage. Now let's look at project development phase documentation in more detail. In this part, we will focus on documenting the results of SCE evaluation in the project development phase. SCE evaluation findings, recommendations, and supporting information are used to update the project file and prepare appropriate sections of the environmental document. The environmental document may include a separate SCE technical memorandum when circumstances warrant, and certain information from the project conceptual stage relocation plan if relocations are involved. The main objectives of SCE evaluation in the project development phase are to build upon results from any evaluations conducted in the project planning phase, to thoroughly understand community issues and potential for effects on the human environment, to avoid or minimize potential adverse effects through practicable means consistent with the requirements of the National Environmental Policy Act, and where we are now, to report related findings and recommendations in the environmental document and to update the project file. The primary guidance for sociocultural effects evaluations during project development is Part 2, Chapter 9 of the PD&E Manual. The project file refers to information maintained by the project team during a PD&E study, including information carried forward from any planning phase evaluations. The project file includes information demonstrating that the 6 sociocultural issues were given full consideration during the study. Typical project file contents relative to SCE evaluations are data and analysis that inform the evaluation, including consideration of non-discrimination laws and policies, the public involvement plan and related activities, project presentations given to agencies, local officials, and the public comments received, and other supporting documentation such as contact lists, meeting notices, correspondence, and media coverage. For more information on this topic, including a listing of typical project file information, refer to Part 1, Chapter 4 of the PD&E Manual. The project file has several functions that are carried out over the life of a project. Along with informing decision-making during project development, the project file supports the project record of decision issued by the lead federal agency. If decisions made in the NEPA process are challenged, the project file provides a starting point for preparing the administrative record. The court bases its review of the agency decision on the information contained in the administrative record. And finally, the project file helps future processes understand the issues. The SCE evaluation supports development of an environmental document as prescribed by the project class of action. Projects for which SCE evaluations are prepared include those with minimal to no impact potential and those with greater impact potential. Under the low impact potential category include Type 1 and programmatic categorical exclusions and non-major state actions. Projects with greater impact potential include Type 2 categorical exclusions, environmental assessments, environmental impact statements, and state environmental impact reports. Further information on class of action categories is provided in the PD&E Manual in Part 1, Chapter 2, Environmental Class of Action Determination, and Part 1, Chapter 10, Non-Federal Projects. For projects anticipated to have minimal or no impact, only minimal documentation about the SCE evaluation is required. For Type 1 and programmatic categorical exclusions, the same checklist is used. 3 questions on the checklist are relevant to SCE evaluation. Question 1, will the project cause adverse impacts to local traffic patterns, property access, community cohesiveness, or planned community growth or land use patterns? Question 7, are there significant amounts of right-of-way being acquired? And question 8, will the project require relocation of residents or businesses? The SCE evaluation results are indicated by checking yes or no for these questions on the checklist. Substantiating data for the responses is included in the project file. For non-major state actions, a similar checklist is used. The checklist has 3 questions pertaining to SCE issues, including is there potential for public controversy on the project. SCE evaluation are likewise indicated by yes or no checkmarks and documentation in the project file. Type 2 CEs are projects with no known significant impacts, but may require more detailed analysis and public involvement for issues discovered. For this project class, the SCE evaluation results are documented in the Type 2 Categorical Exclusion Determination form. Parts of the form to be attentive to are Sections 4, 6, and 7. In Section 4, include the statement, "This project has been developed without regard to race, color, national origin, age, sex, religion, disability, or family status." In Section 6, Impact Evaluations, the SCE issues are included under the Social and Economic heading, with the exception of Aesthetics, which is under the heading Physical. For each SCE issue, place an X in the appropriate Impact Determination column, indicating the level of impact. The 4 column options are significant, non-significant, none, and no involvement. Documentation must be provided to substantiate impact determinations of significant, non-significant, or none. Use the column labeled Basis for Decision for substantiating information. In Section 7, Commitments and Recommendations, summarize any commitments to address sociocultural effects or controversies during design and/or construction. This summary should match the related content included in the preliminary engineering report. An environmental assessment is prepared when the significance of potential impacts are not clearly established. The EA is used in determining whether an environmental impact statement or a finding of no significant impact should be prepared. The SCE evaluation results are summarized in the Impacts section under the Social and Economic subsection, items 1 through 6, and the Physical subsection, item 5. Detail provided should be commensurate to the SCE evaluation findings. As appropriate, discuss communities and community resources with potential for significant impacts, foreseeable project-related impacts, and recommended actions to avoid, mitigate, or minimize impacts. Also include the statement, "This project has been developed without regard to race, color, national origin, age, sex, religion, disability, or family status" in the Impacts section. The Comments and Coordination section is where the summary of community outreach activities for the SCE evaluation is reported. If there are any commitments to address community effects or controversies during subsequent project phases, identify those in the Commitments and Recommendations section. Like the Type 2 CE, this summary must match the related content in the preliminary engineering report. An environmental impact statement is prepared when a project has the potential to significantly affect the environment. The documentation must be sufficient to support the class of action determination. The highlighted sections on the figure show the parts of the EIS where the SCE evaluation results are documented. In the summary section of the EIS document, indicate that the project was developed without regard to race, color, national origin, age, sex, religion, disability, or family status by including the standard statement. In the EIS Affected Environment section, provide a summary of the affected human environment for each of the SCE issues. Include information demonstrating that environmental justice populations and other special populations have received full consideration. Summarize the potential adverse effects for each project alternative and strategies to resolve adverse effects in the Environmental Consequences section under the Social and Economic Impact subheading. If an environmental justice-related issue is involved, discuss that issue in a separate section. In the Comments and Coordination section, identify any project features developed with community outreach and coordination with government agencies, private groups, and the public, including documentation of coordination efforts. Summarize commitments to address sociocultural effects or controversies for the selected alternative in the Comments and Recommendations section. This summary should match related content in the preliminary engineering report. The State Environmental Impact Report is used in the evaluation of non-federally funded projects with greater impact potential. The SCE evaluation results are included in the Impact Evaluation and Commitments and Recommendations sections. Under the Impact Evaluation section, indicate the level of effect for the SCE issues listed. If an issue is not associated with the project, mark the column with the abbreviation for no involvement. For issues that potentially exist but would have little or no impact, mark the column labeled None. If there is a potential impact that ranges in magnitude from minor to substantial, mark the column with the abbreviation for the word minimum and provide supporting documentation. If a potential impact is significant, mark the column labeled with the abbreviation for significant and provide supporting documentation. In the Commitments and Recommendations section, discuss any project commitments made in coordination with the community. When the potential for community effects are substantial or complex, the optional SCE Technical Memorandum is recommended. This companion memorandum to the environmental document provides all of the SCE evaluation results in one place to facilitate review of the issues and solutions. If this approach is selected, the SCE evaluation results are summarized in the environmental document. The SCE Technical Memorandum may be prepared for projects of any classification, but it is most frequently used for EISs where there is a significant SCE issue. The recommended outline for the memorandum is included in Part 2, Chapter 9 of the PD&E Manual. When relocation potential is indicated during the project SCE evaluation, the District Right-of-Way Office prepares a Conceptual Stage Relocation Plan, or CSRP. The CSRP is referenced in the environmental document, and relevant summary data and discussion are incorporated in sections pertaining to relocation effects. The plan accompanies the environmental documents listed when submitted to FHWA for review. To protect the privacy of potential relocatees, the CSRP is not published with the environmental document. It becomes part of the project file to support the administrative record. For more information on the CSRP, refer to the FDOT Right-of-Way Manual and the FHWA Technical Advisory shown. Conceptual Stage Relocation Plan information used in the SCE evaluation includes data about households, businesses, and publicly owned lands having potential for relocation, as well as information obtained through community outreach. This information is compared to current and anticipated availability of relocation resources to identify any specific relocation problems, such as insufficient relocation housing or commercial space. When reporting CSRP data in the environmental document, be sure to follow 3 overarching rules. First, the information reported must be quantifiable, which means no general statements about potential displacements or the availability of relocation resources. The source of the information must be identified. And lastly, the data must be accurate, timely, and reasonably adequate for identifying and discussing relocation effects and related issues. When relocations are indicated by the SCE evaluation, the environmental document must contain certain information in the section addressing relocation potential. This includes pertinent CSRP data and discussion of related substantive issues, the estimated number of households requiring last resort housing, and standard information from the PD&E Manual, a brief summary of FDOT's Relocation Assistance Program and standard information, the results of discussions and decisions concerning functional replacement. Related commitments must also be listed in the appropriate sections of the environmental document, and other standard information that is required when a relocatee is involved. Refer to Part 2, Chapter 9 of the PD&E Manual for all of the standard information noted. This concludes the training on documenting the results of the sociocultural effects evaluation. If you have questions about the SCE evaluation process or suggestions for a future training, please contact Dr. Rusty Ennemoser, State Public Involvement and Community Resources Coordinator. Additional resources and guidance are available on the department's SCE process webpage. Links to resources referenced in this video are listed on the following slides. Thank you for viewing this production of the Florida Department of Transportation.